Hello, this is Team Continental Breakfast, consisting of members Skylar Fernandez, Patrick Ritter, and Bobby Carter. The game we produce is titled Grim Outlook. In Grim Outlook, you play as a character who mysteriously awakens inside of a dungeon. You have no recollection of who you are, and are given little information other than that you should attempt to escape. As you make your way through the game, you encounter both supernatural and absurd elements. These include a sentient and seemingly godlike penguin who drops in at odd times for obscure reasons, as well as zombie-like creatures who serve as one of several obstacles that the player must navigate to escape. The player can choose to locate and read books that are left by a stranger and strewn throughout the dungeon. If they do, the narrative helps to entertain as well as further enhance the experience by adding feelings of things such as mystery as well as anxiety, generally increasing the player aesthetic of the game. Mechanics are introduced early on, and their needed value is reoccurring throughout the game as you attempt to navigate obstacles on your way to escape. Movement is done with a standard 4-directional setup, as well as both the abilities to sprint and crouch. The player must be careful when sprinting, as they have a stamina meter that slowly regenerates and prohibits the player from sprinting when empty. The player must also pay attention to their health when in combat, which also regenerates slowly over time, but when brought to 0, the player will die and be forced to restart the game from the first level. The player is also introduced to a situational mechanic where they are allowed to pick up, move, and throw certain objects. While making it so only specific objects can be picked up and they are not marked differently than those that can't seem confusing, the game clearly indicates when this mechanic will be needed. Examples of this include irregular stacking of objects that clearly block entrances, or places that seem obvious that the player should be able to reach but are either too high to jump or out of reach in some other way, forcing them to search for an object they can pick up. Other obstacles the player runs into are locked doors. Each one requires the player to find a silver key that is located somewhere on the same level. Another challenge in this is that the keys are not universal. Each door has a specific key, meaning the player must check each key to each door to find the right one. Enemies in Grim Outlook take the shape of zombie-like creatures. These zombies will detect and become aggressive to the player when they come within a certain distance or a shot. When at times they may be lurking directly around a corner and the player cannot see them, the zombie will see you. To make the player aware that they are under attack, the zombies will let out a screech when they first become aggressive towards you and every time they make an attack. This way the player will be aware of being attacked even if they are not facing the direction of the enemy. When the player is forced into combat, they are given several different weapons to choose from as the game progresses. These are either given seemingly by magic in the form of glowing orbs in the dungeon that the player can pick up, or by the penguin who, while not exactly helpful, doesn't seem to want you to die either. While generally speaking the weapons become better and more powerful as the game goes on, there are still some situations where the earlier weapons have an advantage over the newer ones. The player can often progress to the next level before exploring all of each dungeon. To incentivize the player to explore each level, we added the books as well as allowed the player to progress without picking up useful but not essential objects, such as weapons. When the player completes the game, they are finally given an explanation for the events that have occurred, as well as a delicious recipe for dinner should they have chosen to explore each level.